All right, so last week, guys, I went through this, okay, and I promised that there would be, hopefully some more interest or, better times coming here after 1919, okay, which was really a tumultuous time. In the early 20s, we had some issues here. Basically, if you were white and Protestant, things really didn't affect you too much when it came to the immigration and the Red Scare, okay? But if perhaps you were not white and Protestants, you could have been affected, certainly if you were an immigrant, okay? And I forgot to tell you a story last week that I remember my fourth hour, because I always tell this story, okay, about immigration during this time period. And so I want to share that with you. And you guys at home may have already heard this. Just take a 3-4 minute break. Okay, so you guys know Coach Lawbone? Okay, I want you to picture Coach Lawbone in your mind right now. Okay, now some people that puts a smile on their face. It always does with me. Okay, Coach Lawbone. Okay, you got him in your mind? You thinking, visualizing him? Okay, he's got the dark hair and his dark glasses, dark eyes, right? Okay, his grandfather immigrated here during this time period in the 1920s. Okay, maybe the teens. Where's that guy from? Where do you think his grandfather? Just looking at him.
Italy.
Where?
Italy.
Not Italian, but that's a good guess. Yeah. His grandfather's from Russia. Okay, so now Lawbone is not his father's name. His grandfather's name. Okay, so when his grandfather immigrated here, he didn't come through Ellis Island. He actually came through Baltimore. Okay, and they were poor Russian migrants. They left during the Bolshevik Revolution. And so when he got here, his grandfather knew that, obviously he doesn't speak English. He's got this, you guys know that Russian accent, right? It's very strong Slavic accent, and also, well, now that I said Russia, does it kind of maybe? I don't know. And so he knew that he wasn't wanted, that those people weren't really welcome here at that point in time. And so when he got off the ship, he saw a dairy truck drive by, and it said Lawbone Dairy, okay? And he said, I'm going to change my name so I can fit in. And they changed the family name to Lawbone, okay? If you go back, there's a lot of people from Mexico did that as well. A lot of people from Germany did that. Last Monday, we were out at the faculty retreat out at St. Mark's, okay? And it's very peaceful out there. It's a beautiful church. And I got there early because it's kind of up high. And if you get there in the morning, you can see the sunrise. And you can, over the city of Wichita, basically. It's really beautiful. It was cloudy Monday morning. So I got there early, tried to get my steps in. I like to walk a lot. And so I walk through that grave, the cemetery, every time I go out there and just look at the names. It's like walking through Bishop Carroll. So a lot of the names you can see were in German, and there's writing in German. And then the next ancestor next to them, at a later date, they changed the spelling of the name. Okay. This history of immigration in this country is really neat to study. And yes, there's been times where there's been xenophobia of different groups throughout American history. The Irish, need not apply. The Germans, when we were fighting in World War I, there was a lot of animosity towards German people, okay, and World War II for that matter. And of course, what happened with Japanese Americans during World War II, right? You've got Arab Americans after 9/11. You know what I mean? So there's a long history of xenophobia here in the United States. Generally, it works itself out, but hopefully we learn from history a little bit. The more you learn about other cultures, the more you learn about people from different places, the less ignorance you have of those people, and the less fear you have of those people. And the best way to do that is just have a conversation with someone. You know what I mean? We have 3 Muslim families in my neighborhood, and I've met all of them. And so, it's just, there's a mosque close to my house, and, there's some Muslims that moved in close, and, are all of them really friendly? No, but so are some of the others aren't really friendly either, right? I mean, so, yeah, that's the best way to kind of, I think, get over the fear is by exposing yourself and getting to know people and so forth, okay? All right, good? Good? Yeah? All right, moving on. All right, so let's talk about something a little more spirited. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Yes, okay. Like the prohibition of alcohol. Guys, this is obviously one of the dumbest things our government's ever done. And really, we can kind of place the blame at the feet of one group of people on this. Women. Ah, yeah, women.
Of course it would be Sam. Yeah, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. I didn't have to say it.
It was like legitimately that.
Well, you had the women's temperance movement, correct? And really, we go back to this Protestant thing, right, guys? The Protestant thing, these Bible thumpers, okay? These Protestants, and it was like, this is the devil's juice right here. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, women were really a big part of this because of, well, women didn't have the same rights as men, and they were being mistreated by men. A lot of times when the men were drunk, or when the men wasted all their money gambling while they were drunk, or wasted all their money on booze, you know what I mean? And so this, yeah, it was really a push by women, but the men, which made up of almost all of Congress, right, or all of Congress, listened to their wives on this one, okay? So you can blame the men as well. All right?
The men were actually.
If the men weren't terrible.
Yeah.
If men had a spine, this would have never happened. Right.
How dare they have
Right.
opinions?
I'm just glad we can all laugh about it. Okay, that's the important.
I'm just messing with you.
Now, prior to the war, Kansas, of course, is one of these states. Prior to the war, about half the states had already passed prohibition within their state borders. And we have some really kind of interesting history here in Wichita with prohibition, or the move towards prohibition here in Wichita, right? You guys know about, Carrie Nation, right? Okay, the lady with the hatchet, right, that would go into the saloons and the bars and so forth and do a number on them. Now, it went through Congress during the war, okay, while we were at war. So, as you guys remember from government class, you need 2/3 of both houses of Congress to propose an amendment, 3/4 of the states to ratify. We didn't have 50 states yet. We were still at 48 states. So you need 36 states to do this, to ratify the amendment. Okay, so they're going to give us reasons to do this. Obviously, you got your beliefs in, alcohol being, the devil's juice for those that were super religious. But for Congress, they're going to give us some wartime reasons, okay, to conserve grain for the war, okay? Who are we fighting against? A lot of immigrants, German immigrants, immigrated to places like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and St. Louis, Missouri, and started brewing beer, like Anheuser-Busch, okay? And these were German. A lot of these people were Germans, these breweries, the ones that own the breweries. And so one way to stick it to the Germans, is to, make it illegal. And of course, sober, clear-headed soldiers and workers during wartime is important to winning the war. Okay, so these are the reasons they gave for banning something that many people, probably the majority of people, thought in moderation was okay. I mean, everybody's different in this room. Everybody's family's different. But I would venture to say almost everybody would say it's okay for the adults to have a glass of wine with Thanksgiving dinner. Most people are like that. You know what I mean? So what you're doing is you're creating a law that a a lot of people are going to violate, that a lot of people don't respect. When people don't respect the laws, people break it. You know, kind of like speed limits. You know what I mean? I mean, really, literally, what percentage of the population actually drives at or below the speed limit?
Old people.
A lot of people
Me,
under
I'm
19.
scared. Oh my gosh.
Well, not on 235. You know what I mean? I'd say like half, more than half are going above the speed limit.
Well, you're new. I'm so afraid to go to school. I feel like I'm gonna get
We
arrested.
know.
If you.
Now-
No, you can only get arrested if you're so afraid to go. If I get on a car going 40, not an issue. I know. Yeah. No, I don't think Oh,
Yeah.
If I get more.
Yeah.
I go 5 over.
That's fine.
That's as far as.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Look, guys.
Yeah,
You hear that? That was a can of worms I just opened.
I forgot to remind you, but did you press record?
I think I did.
Yeah,
Yes, I believe I'm recording.
I know, I hate that.
I genuinely.
Yes.
don't.
Okay,
Like,
All right. Let's get back on this. Okay, so now, if prohibition is the manufacture, the sale, the transportation, and consumption of. Okay, those of you that don't know, there was an exception for mass. All right, the priests were allowed to have wine for mass. Okay, for medicinal purposes, I think they still allowed it some because I mean things like NyQuil. I think they've tried to take the alcohol out of those because kids were abusing, just like drinking a bunch of
There's
NyQuil.
alcohol.
Because alcohol. And a lot of like the cough medicines and so forth, you would see alcohol in them.
There's still age restrictions on it.
Is there? Okay, so yeah, maybe that's what they do. But I think like NyQuil helps sleep. You know what I mean? So they put some alcohol in
Yeah,
it.
that
Say like that's actually an even worse idea. Wouldn't you overdose before you even got drunk?
What?
Like drinking NyQuil to get drunk.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna alter your state of being. You know what I mean? By drinking a bunch of NyQuil, and then it's gonna put you to sleep.
How do they make this whole pill?
No, you have to like water together, it's great, like you can get alcohol on it.
Okay, yeah.
It's rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
Yeah, and at
Okay.
this point, it's like, stop.
Well, and talk about rubbing alcohol. So since you can't legally make it, okay, then so people start making it themselves, right? And so this is where you get, your bathtub gin, your hooch, your booze, and a lot of it's like moonshine, right? It's like grain alcohol, or made out of corn, and yeah, it's not good. Now it'll get you drunk, but it's not good. And then to make money, they would water it down. So like if you went to a speakeasy, the illegal bars, to make more money, they would water it down. What else are you going to do? You're going to complain about this? You want some or you not? They just, so that's how they would make money. So yeah, you would have stills on farms in the country and so forth. I've had former students who said, great, yeah, grandpa had a still out on the farm. And so to stop it from coming into the country from Canada or Mexico, because they didn't ban it, they hired 1,520 federal agents. Now, guys, if you go around the enormity of the United States border and coastline, it's 18,000 miles. From, Canada around the Atlantic coast, Gulf Coast, all the way around. It's 18,000 miles. And you're going to patrol 18,000 miles with 1,520 federal agents. Not going to happen. So you're going to have some snuck in, across our borders on ships and so forth, like Hancock was doing back in the day, right? And smuggling, and then you're going to have the illegal stuff made here, okay? And so, with the disrespect for the law, do you think there were any, cops that drank during Prohibition? Do you think there were any politicians that drank during Prohibition? Of course, okay? So there's so much disrespect for the law, but it's still the law. And some places it's going to be enforced, and some places it isn't, okay? But this, because it's illegal, you set up a black market, okay? So somebody's going to get it, make it, and they're going to sell it, and they're going to make a lot of money off of it because there's a high demand for it. Because it's illegal, it's a little more fun to do. You know what I mean? There's a little more excitement to it because it is illegal. Yes? You guys know what I'm talking about. You're teenagers. What can I get away with? Getting
Speeding.
Yeah. Huh? Right. Okay. Now, all right. So, yeah, this is gonna. I mean, you guys know about Al Capone in Chicago. You know, Chicago, Kansas City had the mob. In different big cities, you would have different groups of people that controlled certain turf. So, like in New York City, you would have, you know, the Poles would control the alcohol trade in this part of town, the Jews in this part, the Italians over here, and you would have turf wars. So if you tried to sell alcohol on my turf, I couldn't call the Federal Trade Commission and say, hey, this guy's competing unfairly. No, you take that into your own hands using guns, and you protect your turf, and this is where the violence comes in, because there's a lot of money to be made here. Yeah.
Fairly similar to the Mexican drug war.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in Mexico, Colombia with the cartels, because they want to be the ones that are selling it here, getting across the border. And yeah, there's rivalries there. Okay, and drug trade on our streets. Yeah, I imagine there's some of that. Turf wars as well. Yes, today. Okay, which, brings up the idea of, okay, yeah, obviously, guys, we got rid of this. From 1919 to 1933, prohibition will be the law of the land. Okay, so for 14 years, we did this. Okay, now, what we're seeing with marijuana, right? We're seeing all these states decriminalize it, not legalize it, but decriminalize it. Okay, what if we did that with all drugs? This would kind of really weaken the cartels. And maybe if it's not a black market, then the government can regulate these drugs and tax them. This is the libertarian point of view, yes? Sam?
On the other hand, the drugs are directly harmful to every part of you. Alcohol can get addicted. It's not 100% likely. When it's over 90% likely that you're going to get addicted.
Like
has negative effects on your ability to think clearly, even after you stop. And you can never quietly rejoin society. You always think about it.
with that addiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's directly harmful to every part of society.
So like heroin.
Yes.
Yes. Now why do people do heroin? They want to forget their problems, right? They want to feel good. Opioids. Okay, so it starts with, see, this is the difference. Listen, I don't know how much you guys have gotten this pounded into you. Okay, let me do it. All right, hear it from me. Okay, the pills. It's the pills today, right? It starts with the oxy, the hydrocodone. You with me? You understand what I'm talking about? Okay, this makes you feel good. It takes your pain away. This is why they prescribe it after you get your teeth taken out, or you've got a bad back, you've got pain, right? So they give you pain pills. Now, when you can get a prescription for those, then you don't have any problems, right? But it's when the doctor says, okay, you can't stay on this indefinitely, okay? Then you get addicted to these, okay? And really, here's the thing. If you're ever prescribed these medicines, only take these medicines when you have pain. If you have bad pain, okay? If I get a prescription of hydrocodone, I will not take it unless I have severe pain. And then generally I'm breaking it in half and taking a half a dose. I've had two good friends of mine that were addicted to painkillers. In both cases, it almost cost them their lives. Okay, almost cost them financially, because when you can no longer get the pills, that's when people turn to heroin. And my son has an acquaintance I wouldn't call it, well, she wasn't a friend, but my son knew her through a friend. 21 years old, here in Wichita. Last week, OD on heroin. Started with the pill. This is happening all over the country, guys. Starts with the pill. Stay away from the pills. Okay? If you have severe pain, then chances are you won't become addicted to it. You know what I mean? Because it's helping your body get close back to normal. But if you don't have pain and you take these give you an elevated sense of euphoria. They make your body feel good. And you want to feel like that all the time. And it gets quick. It can happen like that. You can become addicted. Now, one of the most addictive substances there are is nicotine. You guys understand that? So this juuling crap, which was really big about 3 years ago. Now, my son tells me this. He's a sophomore in college. He's like, all these people are doing it. And he said when he was at Carroll 2 years ago, he's like, Dad, I don't know. I only know a few people that aren't doing it. You get addicted to nicotine, it's hard to come off of it. It's really hard to come off of it. It makes you feel good. Okay? Alcohol. I graduated from high school in 1986. My buddy Bubba, I grew up in the South. Okay? I guess I say, let me subtract a few years from my age, about 6 years ago. At 45 years old, drank himself to death. Literally drank himself to death. Vodka. His liver quit working. And he knew if he kept drinking, he was going to die. They told him. Couldn't stop. Guys, all of these things are going to have negative effects. Okay. Most psychologists, okay, when I was growing up, they didn't call this a disease. They didn't call drug addiction a disease. Today, they call it a disease. Okay? I don't know who's right. But if it is a disease, then we have to treat it. Right? Do we want to punish people or treat people? And these are the two debates on this attitude right now. You know what I mean? Like, should we treat heroin addiction or heroin use or addiction, using that a crime, or should we try and help these people get off of it? And it's really hard because once people go to rehab, a lot of them just relapse. My mother was what do you call it? Well, she was an alcoholic. Both of my parents were. But my mom was a recovering alcoholic. Okay. So this was when she was about 50. She burned herself in the kitchen really bad. And she was drinking to cover the pain. You know what I mean? From a burn. And the burn wouldn't heal. Because she was so unhealthy, just drinking too much. Okay. She went into rehab for 30 days. My mom did. Okay. And she came out. And she never drank again. Okay. But she smoked. Like chain smoke. Both of my parents chain smoked. Okay. So you guys know about addictive personality, guys. That is passed on. You know what I mean? If somebody in your mom or dad's an addict, you have to be careful because there's a genetic link there. You have to be careful. My sister and I have been pretty fortunate. I mean, neither one of us become alcoholics or addicted to drugs. Okay? So, been pretty fortunate. But we have to be careful about that. You know what I mean? Yeah, got to be careful. All right, so yeah, I don't know. On legalization, I think everything might be a little bit too much. Like you said, these are things that are harmful, and if you do them for too long, you're not going to be able to function. You know what I mean? And then there's marijuana, which there are people smoking marijuana since they were 18 years old through their 60s that function fine in society. So, I mean, you guys on the marijuana front, I think I don't know if we talked about this in government class, but the concern a lot of people, my concern is, kids, access, right? Having access to easier access to marijuana. Okay, so you're gonna get together with some friends event this weekend, and you want to smoke a joint this weekend with your friends. All right. Raise your hand if you know where to find a joint for this weekend. You don't know who to contact, Steve, to get a joint? Nobody at this school? Okay. All right. See, it's available to you. If you want it, you can find it, right? Yes? Now, what about middle school? It's a little bit harder in middle school, but if we legalize it or decriminalize it, the access becomes easier. You know what I mean? You could get alcohol in middle school if you want, if you tried hard enough. You could get it, right? You could get cigarettes if you tried hard enough. Might be a little bit more difficult for marijuana in middle school. That's what I worry about as somebody that's been a parent, is getting kids easier access. You know what I mean? That's what I worry about. And marijuana makes you stupid. I don't know. I think it makes you stupid. It makes you lazy. I know that. Short-term memory, brain dead. No, I mean, I know there are people that function that are been smoking marijuana for decades, okay, and do fine. I had friends that smoked in high school and college, and for the ones that did a lot, it just kind of took them like 4 or 5 more years to grow up. You know what I mean? Like, I had a buddy that kicked butt on the SAT, got a full ride to Mississippi State, and he liked to party, and he smoked a bunch of weed, and he flunked out his first year. He was a really bright guy, okay? Then, he finally went back to school, and he's a geologist now. You know what I mean? He's a really smart guy. But he smoked too much weed when he was in college. He flunked out. He's lazy. Okay, just sitting around, eating and smoking, getting the munchies. You know what I mean? I don't know. The access, I think, is the fear I have for kids. And I don't like telling people how they have to live their lives. And I don't think the government should do too much about it. You know what I mean? We are a free country, right? But what's best for society, too? It's a tough one. This was a mistake. Okay? Because most people thought it was all right to do it. All right. So before I move on, you can write these down if you're taking notes, but you may have already heard of this, right? So the hundreds of millions of dollars that were made by the mafia here, you have to give them some credit, because when they legalized marijuana again, the mafia could have gone into like harder drugs and like gone into that drug trade, but they didn't. But what a lot of them did with their money that they had made from prohibition, they invested out in the desert of Nevada, in southern Nevada, in a place called Las Vegas. A lot of the seed money to build the casinos out there was prohibition that they made out. You know what I mean? So they invested in gambling, in casino, okay, the mafia, all right? They did hotels. I mean, a lot of them went down to Cuba and built, casinos and hotels down there, okay, and invested that money. So they could have gone into like worse things. Did any of you guys ever watch the show Sopranos, HBO? It's a modern mafia kind of thing. And the thing in New York City with the mafia today is trash collection. No, it's a big business, right? I mean, New York City, how much trash? 8 million people. So there's turf wars over who gets to collect trash in that part of the city. Because, I mean, you're guaranteed to make a whole lot of money. Yeah.
kind of a good thing. We have people
Competition.
about how to be a benefit to society.
Yes. Take out the trash. Okay. That's kind of what the whole Tony Soprano show is. It's actually really well done. Okay. And then one more thing, one other positive, if you're into gambling, that's a positive byproduct, Las Vegas, Sin City. Okay. Another possible positive side effect of Prohibition was, did any of you guys ever watch the show, The Dukes of Hazzard?
I know the old guy was on Dancing with the Stars.
Okay. Well, this TV show is about the South, and it could be replicated here in Kansas, but in the South where they had, they'd make the illegal booze, okay? To transport it's illegal. So what they would do when they were running liquor, they would soup up their cars and make them really fast so they could run from the cops. And when Prohibition was over, you had all these people in the South with these really fast cars and nobody to run from, or no reason to run from the cops. So they built dirt tracks and they started racing. And a billion-dollar industry known as NASCAR was born. Any NASCAR fans in here? Yeah, we don't have a lot of NASCAR fans.
Not as big. Nobody's like, what's the point? They go in circles.
Yeah,
IndyCar
but
racing
it's
is
really
way more.
fast. And they do. And they do wreck.
No,
Huh?
it's like loud.
No, IndyCar racing is way more interesting than.
Yeah.
It's so
Listen, there's skill involved in NASCAR racing. There's a lot of rubbing. I mean, come on, Ricky Bobby, let's go. I went to Talladega once, the Talladega 500, and dude, it's pretty cool. I've been to the one. Anybody ever been to Kansas City for a race for the speedway up there? I just haven't gone either. I'd really like to go. But I've been to Indy 500, and I've been to the Talladega 500. Indy was cool. That was 1976, and I had great seats for that. I was in the first turn, like fourth row, like close to the track, and then Talladega, I was in the infield. But the turns are literally banked like that. That's why they put the number of the car on the top, on the roof of the car, because you can see it when it goes through the turns. It's fast, it's loud, it's fun. I'm not a big NASCAR guy, though. I like to watch the start and the finish. Give me the last 10 laps. I'll watch that. Because that's where it gets exciting. Sometimes it's not exciting, you know what I mean? But at the beginning, that's where you get the most wrecks. When they're starting and everybody's bunched together. 33 cars, 35 cars. Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but my cousin does that, make it like canvas dirt buggy style, and like.
Uh-huh.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Those are so cool.
Yeah. There's all like sprint cars and yeah. There's a lot of different kinds of that. Yeah, it's fun. 81 Speedway. Any of you guys ever been up there? I haven't either. I need to go. It's really loud. We had a small track in Pensacola where I grew up, and we would go to that. And stock car racing was fun. Just, it's an activity. Yeah.
I know. I went to NASCAR when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where it was though, because I was so little.
Yeah.
I just remember we went and we met like one of the drivers.
It could have been Kansas City.
I don't think it was.
Now we had a good driver from El Dorado. He just retired. Clint Boyer. He's from El Dorado, Kansas. And I'd say he's in the top 15 of all the drivers, you know what I mean? The Tarbells are pretty good friends with him. But anyhow, okay. So NASCAR. Can I tell you one more quick story?
Yeah.
All right, so my buddy Van, this is the guy that.
You have a buddy named Van?
Van? Bubba and Van, yeah. Okay, Van was adopted. Okay? My buddy Van was adopted, okay? And so he never knew who his real mom and dad were, okay? Until he grew up, okay? And by the way, Van was the one that got the full ride to Mississippi State.
He
Okay?
sounds like a fun guy.
Van is a good dude. Yeah, I mean, we're still friends. Now, Van was always a huge NASCAR fan, okay? and that's who I went to Talladega with. We were sitting around like 22 years old. I'm out of college. Me and some friends are sitting around and hanging out. It's like midnight. Talladega's the next day. It's up in Alabama. I'm in Florida. And we're like, dude, let's go to the race. It's about a 5-hour drive. So we get in the car at like midnight, drive all night, pull into the infield about 6 a.m. and sleep for a few hours. And then the race festivities start. And we watch the race, go back home. It was an adventure. You can do that stuff when you're in your 20s, okay? And you're not married, and you know what I mean. So anyhow, you got to have a little adventure. Sorry, I'm way off. Okay, but anyhow, when Van got older, he started to look for his mom and his dad, his real mom and dad. Okay, trip on this. Okay, so his mom had him when she was really young. I mean, she was like, I don't know, 17 or 18. Okay, so she put him up for adoption. He tracked her down. Well, she never married his dad. Okay, his biological dad. But she married later on to a guy, his last name is French. Okay? This guy French is the founder of NASCAR. Like the guy that owned NASCAR was his stepdad. His mom, his real mom, had married. So he reconnected with his mom and moved to Daytona, where Daytona 500 is, and NASCAR's headquarters. And he met his stepbrother and stuff like that. And now he lives in Daytona with what's part of his family. He was always a NASCAR. He was the biggest NASCAR guy of all of my friends. And little did he know, his mom married the founder of NASCAR. Isn't that a good story? That's worth the 5 minutes. Yes. I think so. His stepbrother raced. He was a racer. And he didn't make it to NASCAR, but on some of the lower circuits and stuff like that. And yeah, I think they helped him out. But he has a good job. Like I said, he's a geologist, and he does good. So yeah. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's a great story, my buddy Van. Okay, women. Okay, women's suffrage. All right. So remember how we talked about during World War I, ladies went into work in the workplace and so forth. Wilson basically said after the war, he says, after all the women have done for this country during this great war, I see nothing wrong with giving half the population the right to vote. Because literally half the population did not have the right to vote. You know what I mean? And so that was 1919. It goes through, and women will be able to vote in the November 1920 presidential election. Okay. Are we almost out of time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I got to stop telling stories.
No, Robert.
Okay, who are women going to elect? They're going to elect this guy. Okay. This is Warren G. Harding. Mentioned him earlier. Okay. Harding, Coolidge, Hoover back there in the corner. Okay. He didn't have a ton of experience when he ran for president. He had started as a newspaper guy, did well with the newspaper in Ohio, served in the Ohio Senate, then lieutenant governor, and then governor of Ohio. Okay. Little presidential trivia. Am I doing it again? Presidential trivia. What state has produced the most presidents?
Yeah, that's
Ohio up there.
I know. Virginia's number 2. But most people, if you were to get, ask that without this being up there, they would say Virginia, and they'd be close. But Ohio has produced more presidents than any other state, which is interesting. Yeah. Okay. OH. Go Bucks. All right. Now, listen. He didn't have a ton of experience, but he was friendly. He was likable. He was silver-haired and dignified. He looked like a president. Who's voting now? Women. Am I saying that women are so shallow that they would vote for somebody based on their looks? I'm not saying that just about women. I'm saying that about men and women. Okay, because people, I mean, really, literally, if I remember one of my early years teaching, I showed like a 2000 something debate, and it was like the Republican debate. So it had like 12 Republicans on the stage, right? One trying to be the nominee. And just the comments from the students about how they looked, how they talked, you know what I mean? That dude, he's funny looking, you know what I mean? It's like Ted Cruz, the way he talks, you know, or Sarah Palin. You know, she's a good looking lady, but the way she talks just can grind on you, you know what I mean? Yes, this does play a role. But hey, Harding's in, he's going to win, okay? Now, this is him throwing out the first pitch at the baseball game. That tradition, the first game of the season, that tradition started with President McKinley. Now, they used to throw him out from the stands. There's a presidential box where the president would sit. And they'd always do it in Washington with the Washington Senators. There used to be a baseball team called the Senators, all right? Then they left, and then quite a few years later, they got the Washington Nationals, okay? And so they'd go to Baltimore when the Nationals weren't in town. The president would go to Baltimore and throw out the first pitch, okay? And I forget what year they started going out on the mound to throw out the first pitch, okay? And some of our presidents are good at throwing, some are not. Hey, no, not to offend it. We have any girls in here play softball? Growing up, softball? Okay, so you guys know how to throw, right? You know how some people throw like a girl and some people throw like a guy. Like if you're a good softball player, you throw like a guy, right? I know that's mean. I don't mean to be mean, but I've had some guys try out for baseball that throw like girls, like President Obama. He's lefty and he throws like a girl, okay? Now, yeah.
Small hands.
Now, the best was George Herbert Walker Bush played baseball at Yale. He's a left-handed pitcher and played first base. He could throw a baseball. And his son, W. Bush, okay, could throw a baseball. He grew up playing baseball and owned the Texas Rangers. Now, George W. Bush was a cheerleader at Yale, not a baseball player at Yale. Don't know if you knew that.
He was a cheerleader?
Yep.
Who was
Yep.
the cheerleader?
We've had a couple. I think we've had a couple that were cheerleaders.
So much sense.
Yeah. The guys used to cheer, and then that kind of went away, and now guys are cheering again. You know what I mean? Which is cool. I mean, because for the cheerleaders, having that strong dude to throw you up in the air and do this, you know, you got to be pretty strong to do that. You know what I mean? Okay, I know I'm out of time, but the best first pitch I ever saw, as you might have experienced this after 9/11, it was in New York, right? The Yankees were in the playoffs. Mr. Long's a big Yankee fan. And they had shut down baseball after 9/11 for a few days, right? And Bush is like, you know, we're not going to let these people win. We're gonna have baseball. It was the playoffs. And so he went through the first pitch out, the first game back at the playoffs. And I mean, it was incredible. I mean, just the crowd, the energy, the national pride, the president going out there, and he went out and just, you know, he went out and threw it. Strike right there, man. Boom. Okay. It was awesome. Google that one. YouTube that. First pitch, W. Bush. Hey, guys. Sorry I didn't cover as much as I should have today. Hope it was. Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.